Number 13, this would be a good one. These are all good ones, I think. Is a state marriage license prerequisite to holy matrimony in the eyes of God? The right answer is no. No, it's not. God alone established the laws of marriage, family, home, etc. God, therefore, as the author of the home, is the only one who has the right to define what a home is and what marriage is. Until the early 20th century, there was no such thing as a state marriage license. That was a creature of the 20th century evolution of bigger government into our lives, which really began in the 20th century. Well, it began with Lincoln, but it began in earnest with the 20th century. So now you have to go to the state and get permission to be married. Do Christians not realize that when you allow a government agency to force a license upon you for something that is an inalienable right under God, you have allowed that government to define that which you have given them permission to legislate. If they have the power to legislate, they have the power to define the legislation. For example, in 2015, when the Supreme Court Obergefell decision legalized homosexual marriage, Christians all over the country, pastors all over the country, went ballistic, up in arms. Oh, they ranted and ranted and ranted about how evil and ungodly it was that the Supreme Court, how dare them think that they can redefine God's definition of marriage. God's definition of marriage is one man and one woman under God. In the Garden of Eden, God established marriage. How dare they try to redefine marriage? Duh. For 100 years, you, the church, and the pastors allowed government to dictate who could be married and who could not be married. You allowed Christians to go before a civil magistrate of some sort and ask permission for you and your wife or you and your husband to become married under the law. You've been asking permission of the government for 100 years. Why should you be surprised when that same government turns around and redefines the institution that you gave them the authority to control 100 years ago? That goes back to the ignorance and the hypocrisy of the church. I'm so thankful that we live in one of a very, very small handful of states, and they're all out here in the West. I used to know which the other ones were. I think there's 5 that allow their citizens to become man and wife without a state marriage license. we don't have to go crawling to the government to ask permission to be married. All of the other states still yet today require that they have a marriage license from the state. Which is, by the way, in case you're interested, which is why not only will I not perform a ceremony between homosexuals to be married, I will not perform a ceremony between heterosexuals if they have a state marriage license. I will only perform ceremonies for couples who do not grovel before the state and ask permission to be married. Marriage is a divine institution. It is not a civil institution. This is a divine institution between the families and God alone. So ask the pastor, is state marriage license a prerequisite to holy matrimony in the eyes of God? You know, these pastors, they don't realize what they're saying. And I know because I was one for over 3 decades, over 30 years. And I performed hundreds of marriages under state licensure. You see if I can remember it. At the end of the ceremony, my vows and all that, and then I would announce them as husband and wife, I would have to say, according to the laws of the state of Florida, and as a minister of the gospel of Jesus Christ, in the presence of these friends, family, and God, I have great pleasure in pronouncing you husband and wife. That's what I had to say. As an officer of the laws of the state of Florida, I pronounce you man and wife. I did that for over 30 years and never gave it a second thought. That's the way I was trained. That's all I knew. When I finally began to study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not to be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth, it dawned on me that God and God alone is the author of marriage. The state has no interest in it.